Hey, welcome to another dispatch from Hollie McKay. We're going to California this time, and we are going to go check on the veterans that live in and around West LA. Hollie, you visited there recently. Tell us a little bit about it.
So, Dennis, this is a baffling issue. Los Angeles, it really has the most homeless veterans of anywhere in the country. And if you look at the numbers, they're really, they've been unchanged now for 8-9 years, despite the millions and millions of dollars that are being thrown at the VA and at other NGOs to try to curb the amount of homeless veterans. And it really hasn't done any good. And so that always, to me, raises the question, well, what is really going on there? And there are a multitude of factors in which people end up homeless. But I think with Los Angeles specifically, you can't help but really look at what is happening with this land that the VA has. And you and I have gone past many times in West LA. It's a beautiful campus where the VA is. And you've got these kind of, sprawling green grounds and these buildings that are once, very historical, that are kind of fallen beyond repair. And this was an issue that was first made aware to me about 7 or 8 years ago when the VA was being sued. Because as it turns out that a huge chunk of this land that was supposed to be dedicated to veterans, that was dedicated more than 100 years ago by a very wealthy landowner, is actually being rented out to movie studios, to UCLA. There's sporting facilities on there. There's laundry facilities on there. There's a sort of a very upper class golf club happening there. And yet the issue, again, it remains unchanged after 8 years, that the fact that this land is supposed to be for veterans, and very specifically for the purpose of housing veterans and giving them their own community. So that, of course, it doesn't get enough attention, but of course, for those working on the issue and trying to curb homelessness, it really is something that is a cause for concern.
I actually, and you and I have driven past there many times, and as a matter of fact, I think my car broke down right by there once, and I kicked you out of the car, and you had to walk back to wherever you needed to get to. But what's interesting is after you left, I got help keeping the traffic at bay and everything by some of those homeless veterans who just happened to be there and immediately started helping out. And so these people are there. And I also remember the incidents that you speak of in terms of the land being leased and the controversy that started off with that. Now, in recent years, one of the things that's happened there that I think you covered is that they've started building essentially what are mini homes for some of these people to replace the tent cities that were there, that were really, I mean, they were pitiful when you drove by there and looked at them, at the conditions these people were living in. And some people have started to help in some ways to alleviate some of that. It doesn't change the fact that there's still that leased land problem that is there. But what did you find out when you talked to some of those people? Because in your article, you talked to some of the people that are trying to help these people on the ground right now.
Yeah, and they have cleared some of the tent cities, especially ones that were in Brentwood. But what happens then is these sort of get moved into these sort of container type homes. They're not really suitable for families. And one of the people that I spoke to that's really working on the issue, his name is Robert. He sent me a video last week of a lot of these containers on fire. So it just shows you that they are some highly flammable. It can be anything, from cooking to, if you've got people that have mental, illnesses, which definitely runs, unfortunately, very rampant within the veteran community there, that may have left, a cigarette lit or anything like that. And it was just, most shocking sort of videos that I'd seen. And thankfully, my understanding is that nobody was hurt. But certainly that is a situation that is very dangerous. And so you sort of have also a lot of veterans, and another issue that really came up was that oftentimes they are issued vouchers from the VA that will enable them to go and find housing, but oftentimes the vouchers really don't cater to the cost of what it is to get an apartment in Los Angeles. And Los Angeles is a very expensive city to live in. And of course, the landlord, you know, is under the obligation to take whatever's the best deal he or she can get. And so by the time the veterans may find housing, that voucher has expired. So there are just endless problems. And the frustrating part is that over the course of time, despite the awareness of these, they're just not being, there's nothing being done to kind of fix them. And even with sort of that VA land, there was supposed to be sort of a master plan the VA was coming up with that will sort of turn a lot of this land into housing, into a little bit more of a community for veterans in that area. But when you look at the numbers, I think it was 11% of the houses that was supposed to be built, or this sort of temporary container type thing that was supposed to be built for veterans have been done. And that is pretty shocking, you know, as to what was supposed to be achieved in this plan by this point in 2022. And it really seems that the VA has little interest in putting a stop to any of its very lucrative financial deals that you know, does get a lot of money from UCLA. It does get a lot of money from these private places that rent out the land for, you know, wine tastings and whatever happens. And it seems like the VA is very reluctant to sort of stop any of the very lucrative money, but that's not really going back into veterans. And it's not solving the core problem. And we have to go back to the fact that this land was dedicated in the very purpose that it was supposed to be for veterans, and the fact is that it's not. And that is the really sad part here, is when we have institutions that appear to be always putting their own interests above the interests of the people that serve this country, and quite frankly deserve better than that.
Yeah, that's true. Did you get to talk to anybody at the VA about how the plans are coming along in terms
VA
of
doesn't want to comment on this issue. I've been trying to get comments from the VA since I first started writing about this back in 2016. And you sort of get the same canned sort of statements and responses, but it's very clear that they're not particularly interested in addressing the issue.
Yeah, no, that's very, very sad. Well, you know, I'll leave it at this. You know, I feel for those guys because, you know, they put in their time, and whenever you drive by there, you cannot help but when going north, you're looking to the right across the road from where some of this property is, and seeing all of the crosses of in the VA cemetery there. It is a quintessential moving sight to see. And then you see the people in tents on the street, and then you see them walking around, really just milling about town with nothing to do, and very clearly forlorn about the fact that they have been resigned to this fate after serving their country. It does hurt, and I think that it is very important to point out that very little is being done for them, and I thank you for that, Holly. So
It's frustrating in the sense that so much money is thrown at this problem, and we're all very aware of it. It's not that even awareness is an issue, it is that just nothing seems to get done. And as sort of sophisticated as our society is supposed to be, there should be solutions, and there are solutions, but there's clearly other interests that stop this from being solved.
yeah, that's true. And you know, you can point to the leaseholders of that land who don't want to give it up either. And we're talking about Los Angeles, where veterans, as much as this vignette points them out, are one of a even larger number of homeless people that have flocked into the Southern California area and the city of Los Angeles in particular. And it's a big issue that really not a lot is being done about across the board, nearest I can tell, in this area. So they continue to be forgotten people. And thank you, Holly, for pointing out that they're still there.
Thank you, Dennis.
All right, we'll talk to you next time on the next dispatch. Take care.